Welcome to Passion for Sound, the channel dedicated to thorough and honest reviews of headphones, earphones, DACs, headphone amps, other components and accessories. Basically everything audio related except power amps and passive speakers. My name's Lachlan and my goal is to explore and discuss all kinds of audio topics, even the controversial ones, to help us all find more enjoyment from music. Thanks for watching and enjoy the video. Hey folks, welcome to another Passion for Sound audio review, and today a look at the Ikko OH10 IEM. This is a brand I was familiar with through their dongle DACs, but I didn't actually realise they made IEMs until I was having a chat to one of their PR representatives about reviewing the OH10 here, and all I can tell you is I'm so glad that they made me aware of these. Before I get into the review, just a really quick reminder that the giveaway for the Samsung Galaxy Buds Live is still active. If you haven't heard about this before, what you need to do is jump over to my reviews of either the HE400 SE, the Moondrop Sparks and the Soul S-Fit comparison, or the Matrix Mini Eye Pro 3 review. Have a look at those, leave a comment if you want to enter, and of course make sure you subscribe, and I'll be announcing the winner in the next 1 or 2 reviews from now. So good luck with the giveaway, and for now, let's get back to the review. The OH10 retails for $199 US, but when I was doing my research for this, I did also find it for $159 US, but at full price, it's still a relatively well-priced IEM at $299, and that equates for my Australian viewers to around about 275 Australian dollars. Let's start as usual with a quick glamour video to introduce the OH10s. Given that I've got them wrapped up snugly in their little leather case, I think it's actually faux leather, which is probably a good thing for those of us that don't particularly like to kill animals for the sake of our IEMs. So they come in this leather pouch, and I really love the fact that it's a little bit different. It's maybe not the most protective case, it's not a hard case, but I like the fact that it's unusual and it's striking. That same theme's continued when you take the IEMs out and you find the cable, the IEMs aren't currently attached. The cable has a cinch that again is made from some faux kind of suede type material, and it's a good quality braided black cable. It's got an excellent quality connector on the end, 3.5mm, so that's another nice start to the process. We've then got the IEMs themselves, which I'll come back and talk about in a second. But before I do, I want to mention in terms of accessories that you also receive 2 different sets of tips. 3 sizes, small, medium and large, but in 2 different styles of silicone. Now in trying both of them out, I can only assume that the differences between them are purely about comfort and preference, because I didn't find any sonic differences. The bore sizes seem to be the same between both sets, so it seems to be just provided to give you some choice depending on what's comfortable and fits best for your ears. I stuck with the middle size in the darker silicone, but honestly, all the tips seem to be pretty good quality, and therefore they're a good choice whichever one you go for. The accessories for the OH10 are simple, just the case and the tips and obviously the cable, but it's all you really need, and I don't expect anything else. Where everything really comes down to is what's inside these shells, how well they fit, and of course, how they sound. Something pretty unique about the OH10s is that the shells themselves are made of solid copper, and that makes them very weighty and very, very sturdy feeling. These are one of the best feeling IEMs in terms of build quality that I've come across anywhere under, say, maybe $1,000 mark or so. They feel beautifully, beautifully made. They're also really striking. They've got this kind of uneven hammered finish on the front that looks really fantastic the way it catches the light. And because copper is a metal that degrades with exposure to oxygen, they've been coated in a special finish that's designed to both protect the copper, make it safe to wear because copper can react with some people's skin as well, so it makes it safe to wear and keeps it looking shiny and beautiful. And I just think they're a really striking and an exceptionally aesthetically designed IEM. While we're talking about the casings, they're an unusual shaped IEM. From the outside, they look like any other pseudo-custom IEM where they've got that sort of ear mold look, but then obviously a nozzle for tips to make them universal. But where things are different is on the underside, they're a fairly shallow design, where most IEMs kind of have a curl at the back end here, and they might have a cutout in closer to the tip. These have just got this really simple taper up into the tip for the nozzle. So it's an unusual design. It does mean that they don't fit as deeply, or at least they don't feel like they fit as deeply as some other IEMs, some that I'm going to talk about in this review actually. But at the same time, they are comfortable to wear. They do fit very snugly, but maybe not the deepest fit of some of the other IEMs that I've tried. So at this point, we've got a beautiful looking IEM that feels fantastic in terms of build quality. It's got a nice quality cable, good quality tips. Everything so far is going really well. Inside each of the OH10 housings is a two-way hybrid system. So a single balanced armature and a single dynamic driver. That's producing an 18 ohm, 106 decibel sensitivity set of IEMs. So they're pretty normal, run-of-the-mill type sensitivity and impedance for most IEMs. What's not run-of-the-mill though is how they sound. I've tried lots of different hybrid IEMs over the years, particularly the 1-on-1 type hybrids or occasionally the 2BA single dynamic driver hybrids. And normally what I find is that the treble gets overly bright and overly forward from many of them. There's definitely exceptions to that rule, one of them's here in this review, but at the same time I do find that it's often a recipe for an imbalanced tuning. The good news is the OH10 absolutely obliterates that trend. The OH10 has a magnificent tonality that's just balanced across the board. Some people may find it's got just a little bit more bass than they want, but as you can see from the graph on screen, nothing's being over-enhanced. It's just a different balance to what we're often used to. As I listened to them, what I found was that there was an appropriate level of richness and warmth to the sound, but it never got in the way of details and resolution in an overall musical presentation. Vocals, whether they're male or female, are rich and warm, but they've still got a really good sense of texture and breath to them. They're not going to be as breathy sounding as some of the more treble-oriented earphones out there, but at the same time, they balance the tonality overall between bass, mids and trebles so well that I really think the OH10 is quite special. Extension in the treble is strong and detail is good, but somehow it's all done without ever getting bright or sibilant. And indeed, looking at the graph, I don't know entirely how accurate the mini DSP is with those treble spikes, because I'm certainly not hearing treble that's that far pronounced over and above the bass levels. So I do think potentially what you're seeing on screen might be misleading in terms of just how much treble there is, but what I can tell you is that it's very, very well balanced with the rest of the spectrum. In fact, when I made my notes before I did the measurements, I wrote down that the treble is a little bit kind of tame in some cases, and that some people may wish for more of it. I'm guessing what's probably going on here is because the bass is so strong all the way through from the mid-range right down to the sub-bass, I think what you're actually finding is that the tonality is balancing everything off so well that you're not having to turn the earphones up so much to get the rhythm and the drive and the punch. And therefore what we're hearing is a better overall balance of sound without too much treble in the mix. So in other words, the bass is balancing the treble as it should. But do keep in mind, if you like your IEMs sparkly and bright, the OH10 may not be for you. They're not overly warm, they're not overly thick, but they're not a treble-oriented IEM, they're a beautifully balanced IEM across the board. As I've already alluded to, the bass from the OH10 is fantastic, and you can see evidence of that on screen. It's got this incredible extension all the way down with a little bit of an upward tilt, so you do get a nice punch and thump from the bass. It's not an overly fast tuned bass, so do be aware that it's got a little bit of a lingering quality to it. Very, very slight here I'm talking about, but a very slight lingering quality. That means it's got a nice sense of weight and fullness. Those that don't like bassy sounds though may be put off by the decay of the OH10 being just a little bit longer than some of the really snappy, fast BA or even dynamic driver earphones out there. To my taste, it's just about perfect, maybe a teeny tiny bit overdone at times, but I think it's absolutely fantastic overall. Finally, on soundstage and imaging, the width is generally very good for an IEM at this price range, and imaging is both well defined and has a very good sense of layering, again for an IEM in this price range. It's not top tier level quality in terms of imaging and soundstage, but at this price, it's about as good as I think I've heard. And so this was one of those IEMs where I got to this stage in my review and I thought, wow, are these really as good as I think they are? So far, listening to them in isolation and then measuring them, I was really, really impressed with what I was seeing and hearing. But sometimes IEMs can be beguiling and alluring when you listen to them on their own. In fact, all audio gear can be. And then when you put it up against its direct competitors in and around the same price point, you sometimes hear where it falls short, or you hear where it really does excel. And so that brings me to my comparisons for the OH10. My first comparison was with an IEM that's priced pretty much the same, assuming that the OH10s are at their full $199 USD price, and that is the Shozy Form 1.4. The Form 1.4 for a long time have been one of my favourite IEMs in this price range because I think they've got a really unique tuning, they throw a crazy big soundstage, and I just find them really, really beguiling, despite the fact that they've got some imperfections in their tuning and their presentation. The 1.4s use a more traditional style, what I was describing before is kind of that pseudo custom design, where it's more of a custom style shape and then you've got the nozzle on the end for the tips. Having said that, both IEMs sit pretty nicely and are comfortable in the ear, but I do feel like I get a more snug and deep fit with the Shozy Form 1.4, but it's not that they're a better fit, it's just a different fit. So putting the two of these side by side, they're really, really comparable in many ways. Build quality from both is excellent, accessories with both are excellent, fit and comfort are excellent. The only real difference I'm going to be able to find comes down to the sound quality. For this test, I used Dummy by Portishead, and I have to say that immediately the OH10 came across as having the more resolving treble on that track. The Form 1.4 still throws the larger, more spacious sounding soundstage, and it also provides a slightly more emphasized mid-bass area. On the other hand, the OH10 shows that it's much more balanced all the way through the bass, right down into the sub-bass regions, where the Shozy Form 1.4 you could hear starting to trail off a bit. Perhaps the most significant difference between them though, was that the Form 1.4 drew me right into the vocals and really had me focusing on the vocals only. When I switched over to the OH10 again, what I heard was all of the instruments were kind of presented more evenly for me, so I could pick and choose what I wanted to focus on, or just let the overall musical experience kind of flow out of the earphones and just enjoy it for what it was. Both are good presentations, but at the same time, I did feel like the Shozy was a little bit more of a one-trick pony, and that's probably a little bit too harsh, but it was a little bit more specialised, whereas the OH10 just did everything so well. For my final quick test on the Shozy Form 1.4 before moving to my next comparison, I tried both of them with a track that for me is a bit of a party piece for the Form 1.4, and that's This Love by Craig Armstrong with Elizabeth Fraser. On that track, the Shozy Form 1.4 produces this incredible soundstage where Elizabeth Fraser is focused right in the centre at the front, and you can hear the orchestra stretching out behind. I was really keen to see how the OH10 handled that. And again, a little bit similar to what I found on Dummy, what I found was that the Form 1.4 still did the soundstage better. That sense of space and expanse and the imaging clarity of Elizabeth Fraser in the front with everything else behind was really, really exceptional once again on the Form 1.4. But the Form 1.4 was clearly the more balanced and even-handed overall presentation. Out of the two, if I could only have one IEM, the OH10 would definitely be the winner for me. If I could have multiple IEMs and I wanted one that had that really specific vocal focus that the Form 1.4 does provide, then maybe the Form 1.4 would take the win. But if you are in the market and you're looking for that one IEM, maybe you're upgrading from something more budget, I would say that I think, unless you have specific taste towards vocals, I think the OH10 is the much better all-round do-everything earphone. And so with that all said, let's put aside the Form 1.4 and move on to my second comparison. This time it's with the SeeAudio Yume. The reason I chose the Yume is that at $169 US, they're right where the OH10 was when I saw it on sale. The Yume are also a little bit of a darling, or were at one stage a darling, of the Head-Fi world, and so I thought it was another good comparison because hopefully lots of you are familiar with the Yume. I ended up making notes on two different tracks that came on while I was switching back and forth between the OH10s and the Yume, and the first one that I made notes on was Casanova by Foy Vance. And the reason for that is that this is a track that perfectly encapsulates the magic of the OH10 and the flaws of the Yume to my tastes. This track's got a great sense of rhythm and energy to it, and the Yume just can't capture any of that. The Yume's massive bass roll-off and real focus on just the mid-range up into the treble means that the Yume is very limited in its sense of rhythm and engagement that it can provide. The OH10 on the other hand had me grooving along to the track like it's intended to do. There's no doubt that the Yume provided more detail and resolution in the mid-range through the treble because there's no masking from the bass. When you go to the OH10, the bass means that some of those little fine details are unable to be heard, but at the same time I was really interested to notice that the OH10 brings the upper mids a little bit more forward than the fairly dry and mid-range focused Yume. Ultimately though, with all that said, the OH10 was clearly the more enjoyable listen, and I really didn't enjoy my time with the Yume on that particular track. And indeed, in general terms, the Yume is not one of my favourite IEMs. I've kept it around more as a reference than an IEM that I go to regularly to listen to. And so I kept on listening, flipping back and forth between the two, until I landed on another track that brought out a really striking difference. And this one did surprise me a little bit. The track itself is called Breaking Up Somebody's Home, and it's by Kenny Wayne Shepherd Band and featuring Warren Hayes. On this track, both IEMs produced a fantastic rendering of the music, but there was a key difference with the OH10. Obviously, you already know the bass is going to be different between the two, and it's a given that the OH10 has more rhythm and drive from the drums and the bass guitar. But the thing that really stood out to me and the thing that surprised me was the sense of texture and attack in the transients. Where an earphone without the bass, such as the Yume, is inclined normally to give you more of that detail, in this case it was the OH10 that was giving a really tangible and tactile feeling to the texture of the guitar and the organ in the opening section. You could actually feel the notes coming through rather than just hear them as you did from the Yume. The presentation from the OH10, and I'm still talking about the mid-range and the treble, that presentation felt agile and articulate and lively, whereas the presentation from the Yume felt decidedly blunted. It didn't have any of the attack, it didn't have any of the texture that I expected from an IEM that is more mid-range and treble focused. That's where the OH10 really leapt ahead and was absolutely incredible to listen to. So at this point, the OH10 had cemented itself for me as, I think, the best IEM I have heard up to $200 US. And I'm not exaggerating there, I've heard lots of IEMs in that price range. Nothing has impressed me like the OH10 has. And so with that in mind, I did want to see just how good they were. So I reached for my other recent revelation of an IEM in the Tonezzz ONEz. If you've seen my review of the ONEz, you'll know that I was absolutely enamored with them. They had some flaws, the tonality wasn't always perfect, but they did some incredible things. The Tonezzz ONEz sell for a little bit under $400 US, so they're about twice the price. And I was really interested to see if the normal hybrid type technology of the OH10 could compete with the special floating hybrid array of the Tonezzz ONEz. If you don't understand what that is, I'll put a link at the end here where you can go and check out the Tonezzz ONEz review where I explain in full what the floating hybrid array is all about. For now though, all you need to know is that in putting the OH10 up against the Tonezzz ONEz, what I heard were two outstanding IEMs. The OH10 did best the Tonezzz ONEz in their overall tonality across the board. The OH10 are pretty exceptional in that regard, with, as I said before, just maybe a tiny little bit too much bass, or perhaps the decay of the bass is just a little bit too slow, but overall an incredibly tonally balanced IEM. So they do best the ONEz in that regard, but the ONEz are still a champion for me, maybe under say $1,000, for being able to produce an incredible soundstage and incredible image. The OH10 couldn't keep up in that regard, and so both of these are exceptional IEMs with different reasons to buy them. The fact that the OH10 come in so much cheaper makes them a real bargain in my book. So if you're in the market for an IEM that has very good balance tonally, has good resolution and detail without getting too much into focusing on a particular part of the spectrum, one that looks beautiful, is going to be hard wearing, and is comfortable and seals well, then the OH10 should 100% be on your list. For me, it should be at the top of your list, but we do all vary, so make up your own mind based on your preferences to the tonal characters I've described here. If that's of interest to you, I'll put a link down below where you can check out the OH10 for yourself and pick up a pair if they sound good to you. For now though, I'll leave you to the music, so happy listening, and I'll see you here next time on Passion for Sound.